15. In the 27th year of Jeroboam king of Israel, Asa son of Amram, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 52 years. His mother's name was Jeclas. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Amasa had done. The high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense there. The Lord afflicted the king with leprosy until the day he died, and he lived in separated houses. Jotham, the king's son, had charge of the palace and governed the people of the land. As for the other events of Asa's region and all he did, are they not written in the books of the annals of the king of Judah? Ezra rested with his fathers and was buried near them in the city of David. And Jotham, his son, succeeded him as king. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Jeclas, son of Jeroboam, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 60 months. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as his father had done. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. Shalom son of Jesus conspired against Jeclas. He attacked him in front of the people, assassinated him, and succeeded him as king. The other events of Jeclas' region are written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel. So the word of the Lord spoken to Jehu was fulfilled. Your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel to the fourth generation. Shalom, son of Jebus, became king in the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah, and he reigned in Samaria 1 month. Then Menahem, son of Gadi, went from Tisra up to Samaria. He attacked Shema, son of Jebus, in Samaria, assassinated him, and succeeded him as king. The other events of Shalom's region and the conspiracy he led are written in the books of the annals of the king of Israel. At that time, Menahem started out from Tisra, attacked Tiflis and every one of the city in the big city, because they refused to open their gates. He sacked Tiflis and reopened all pregnant women. In the 39th year of Asa, king of Judah, Menahem, son of Gadi, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria 10 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. During his entire reign, he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. Then Paul, king of Assyria, invaded the land, and Menahem gave him 1,000 talents of silver to gain his support and strengthen his own hold on the kingdom. Menahem extended this money from Israel. Every wealthy man had to contribute 50 shekels of silver to be given to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria withdrew and stayed in the land no longer. As for the other events of Menahem's region and all he did, are they not written in the books of the annals of the king of Israel? Menahem rested with his fathers, and Pekah his son succeeded him as king. In the 15th year of Asa, king of Judah, Pekah son of Menahem became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 2 years. Pekah did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. One of his chief officers, Pekah son of Ramiah, conspired against him. Taking 50 men of Gilead with him, he assassinated Pekah, along with Argo and Ariam, in the citadel of the royal palace of Samaria. So Pekah killed Pekah and succeeded him as king. The other events of Pekah's region and all he did, are they not written in the books of the annals of the king of Israel? In the 52nd year of Asa, king of Judah, Pekah son of Ramiah became king over Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 20 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. In the time of Pekah king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser king of Assyria came and took Lizon, Abel, Beth-Mecca, Kenneth, and Hazor. He took Gilead and Galilee, including all the land of Naphtali, and deported the people of Asher. Then Hosea son of Elah conspired against Pekah son of Ramiah. He attacked and assassinated him, and then succeeded him as king in the 20th year of Jotham. son of Uzzah, as for the other events of Pekah's region, and all he did, or they are written in the books of the annals of the king of Israel. In the second year of Pekah son of Ramas king of Israel, Jotham son of Uzzah king of Judah began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uzzah had done. The high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burned incense there. Jotham rebuilt and offered gate of the temple of the Lord. As for the other events of Jotham's region and what he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Judah? In those days, the Lord began to send the Rezin king of Aram and Pekah son of Ramah against Judah. Jotham rested with his father and was buried with them in the city of David, the city of his father, and his son succeeded him as king. 16. In the 17th year of Pekah son of Ramah, Asa son of Jotham king of Judah began to reign. Asa was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. Unlike David his father, he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord his God. He walked in the ways of the king of Israel and went to sacrifice his son in the fire, following the disabled ways of the nation of the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He offered the sacrifices and burnt incense at the high places, on the hilltops and under every spreading tree. Then Rezin king of Aram and Pekah son of Ramah king of Israel marched up and fight against Jerusalem and besieged Hazah, but they could not overpower him. At that time, Rezin king of Aram recovered the elders from Aram by driving out the men of Judah. Adonitis had then moved into Elsa and had lived there to this day. Asa sent messengers to say the Tiglath Pileser, king of Asher, I am your servant and Besher. Come up and save me out of the hand of the king of Aram and of the king of Israel, who are attacking me. And Ahaz took the silver and gold found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasury of the royal palace and sent it as a gift to the king of Asher. The king of Asher completed by attacking Damash and captured it. He deported its inhabitants to Kirat and region to that. Then King Asa went to Damascus to meet the Tiglath-Pileser, king of Asher. He saw an altar in Damascus and sent Uriah and the priest and sketched on the altar, where they laid plans for its contribution. So Uriah the priest built an altar in accordance with all the plans that King Asa had sent from Damascus and finished it before King Asa returned. When the king came back from Damascus and saw the altar, he approached it and presented offerings on it, and he offered up the burnt offering and a grain offering, poured out his drink offerings, and sprinkled the blood of the fellowship offerings on the altar. The bronze altar that stood before the Lord he brought from the front of the temple, from between the new altar and the temple of the Lord, and put it on the north side of the new altar. King Asa then gave these orders to Uriah the priest. On the large new altar, offer the morning burnt offering and the evening grain offering, the king's burnt offerings and his grain offerings, and the burnt offerings of all the people of the land, and their grain offering and their drink offerings. Sprinkle on the altar all the blood of their burnt offering and sacrifices. But I will use the bronze altar for seeking guidance. And Uriah the priest did just as King Asa had ordered. King Asa took away the side panels and removed the basins of the movable stands. He removed the seat from the bronze bowls that supported it and set it on the stone base. He took away the Sabbath canopy that had been built in the temple, removed the royal entryway outside the temple of the Lord in defense of the king of Asher. As for the other events of the region of Asa and what he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Judah? Asa rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. And Hezekiah his son succeeded him as king. 17. In the 12th year of Asa king of Judah, Hosea son of Elah became king of Israel and Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, but not like the kings of Israel who preceded him. Shamkas king of Asher came up to attack Hosea, who had been Shamkas of Asher and had paid his tribute. But the king of Asher discovered that Hosea was a traitor, for he had sent envoys to So king of Egypt, and he no longer paid tribute to the king of Asher, as he had done year by year. Therefore, Shamgar seized him and then put him in prison. The king of Asher invaded the entire land, marched against Samaria, and laid siege of the 3 years. In the 90th year of Hosea, the king of Asher captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Asher. He settled them in Halah, in Goshen and the Heber River, and in the towns of the Medes. All this took place because the Israelites had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of Egypt, and from under the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They worshipped other gods and followed the practice of the nations, and the Lord had driven out before them, as well as the practice that the king of Israel had introduced. The Israelites secretly did things against the Lord their God that were not right. From a watchtower and fortified the city, they built themselves high places in all the towns. They set up sacred stone and Asher poles on every high hill and under every spreading tree. At every high place they burned incense, and the nations whom the Lord had driven out before them had done. They did wicked things and then provoked the Lord to anger. They worshipped idols, though the Lord had said, "You shall not do this." The Lord warned Israel and Judah through all his prophets and seers. Turn from your evil ways, observe my commands and decrees, in accordance with the entire law that I commanded your fathers to obey, and that I delivered to you through my servant the prophets. But they would not listen and were as stiff-necked as their fathers, who did not trust in the Lord of their God. They rejected his decrees and commandments he had made, and their fathers and the warnings he had given them. They followed worthless idols, and themselves became worthless. They imitated the nations around them, although the Lord had ordered them. Do not do as they do, and they did the things the Lord had forbidden them to do. They forsook all the commands of the Lord their God and made for themselves 2 idols cast in the shape of calves, and the Asherah pole. They bowed down to all the starry host, and they worshipped Baal. They sacrificed their sons and daughters in the fire. They practiced divination and sorcery, and sold themselves to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, provoking him to anger. So the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them from his presence. Only the tribe of Judah was left, and even Judah did not keep the commands of the Lord their God. They followed the practice Israel had introduced. Therefore the Lord rejected all the people of Israel. He afflicted them and gave them into the hands of plunderers, until he thrust them from his presence. When he tore Israel away from the house of David, they made Jeroboam son of Nebat their king. Jeroboam tested Israel away from following the Lord and caused them to commit a great sin. The Israelites persisted in all the sins of Jeroboam and did not turn away from them until the Lord removed them from his presence, as he had warned through all the servants of prophet. So the people of Israel were taken from the homeland into exile in Asher, and they were still there. The king of Asher brought the people from Babylon, Curtis Abba, Hamath, and Separate, and settled them in the towns of Samaria to replace the Israelites. They took over Samaria and lived in its towns. When they first lived there, they did not worship the Lord, so he sent lions among them, and they killed some of the people. It was reported to the king of Asher, "The people you deported and resettled in the towns of Samaria do not know what the God of that country requires. He has sent lions among them, which are killing them up, because the people do not know what he requires." Then the king of Asher gave this order: "Have one of the priests you took captive from Samaria go back to live there and teach the people what the God of the land requires." So one of the priests who had been exiled from Samaria came to live in Bethel and taught them how to worship the Lord. Nevertheless, each national group made its own god in the several towns where they settled, and set them up in the shrines the people of Samaria had made the high places. The man from Babylon had made Scout-Benoth, and the man from Cuthid made Neger, and the man from Hamath made Asher. The Levites made Nisib and Turkers, and the shepherds burned their children in the fire and sacrificed to Amalekites and Amalekis, the god of Shepherem. They worshipped the Lord, but they also appointed all sorts of their own people to officiate for them as a priest in the shrines of the high places. They worship the Lord, but they also serve their own gods in accordance with the custom of the nation from which they had been brought. To this day, they persist in their former practice. They neither worship the Lord nor adhere to the decrees and ordinances and the laws and commands that the Lord gave the descendants of Jacob, whom he named Israel. When the Lord made it convenient with the Israelites, he commanded them, "Do not worship any other gods or bow down to them, serve them or sacrifice to them, but the Lord who brought you out of Egypt with a mighty power and outstretched arm is the one you must worship. To him you shall bow down and him offer sacrifice. But you must always be careful to keep the decrees and ordinances and laws and commands he wrote for you. Do not worship other gods. Do not forget the covenant I have made with you, and do not worship other gods. Rather worship the Lord your God. It is who will deliver you from the hand of all your enemies." They would not listen, however, but persisted in their former practice. Even while these people were worshiping the Lord, they were serving their idols. To this day, their children and grandchildren continue to do as their fathers did.